name is Stephanie Lane, and I'm the Executive Director of the Peer Workforce Alliance. I have a clinical background, and I also have a peer background. I have been in the Washington State peer world for about 17 years now. Let's see. Yeah, just about since 2004. And before that, I did youth work in King County. And so I believe that peer support and recovery coaching is what is going to absolutely mend the mental health system or the behavioral health system. And I say this all the time, I don't think we're dying from mental illness, and I don't think we're dying from chemical dependency or physical health. I think we are dying spiritually from a lack of connection to each other. And I wanted to do a presentation that actually articulated that. And so I wanted to, because I say that so much, I wanted to kind of prove it. And luckily there's a lot of science behind the connection piece and the oxytocin piece. So, and if we were in person, I would want to know where you guys are from, because you guys in the audience are the most important. All right, so welcome. We're flying our hope flag today. I believe in people. My introduction, I just basically did. There's the whole work side of Stephanie, but there's also a holistic side of Stephanie. I have a diagnosis, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the experiences in my life that have created some unhappiness. There might be a trigger warning here or there. There might not be, but I'll make sure that you guys know before. So what is it? What does it mean? I know what it means by what it doesn't mean. Doesn't mean, when I think of happiness, I don't think of myself having every single personal need met. It's unrealistic, it's not human. I don't think about feeling pleasure all the time. I did that for 20 years. That's called addiction. I'm in recovery now. That's not my scene, right? Always feeling satisfied with life. That's not human either. I need to know the lows so that I can know the highs. I have to know the pain so that I can know the joy. Never feeling negative emotions, pain, sadness, anger, right? I never met a feeling I didn't want to medicate, right? And so that doesn't create happiness either. And Brene Brown says that when we numb everything. We numb the good and the bad. There's no selective numbing. You know, in that vulnerability video that she talks about with she's going to have a beer and a banana nut muffin. Woo! She's such a partier. But that was her version of not feeling, right? That was her example of numbing. But with all of her vulnerability research, she found that you can't just numb the bad stuff. You numb the good stuff too. And that creates a lack of presence. And what we're going to see throughout this PowerPoint presentation is that a lack of presence is what's really causing a lot of our unhappiness today. Definitions of happiness. I love that picture. Aristotle. When people think about happiness, they do actually think about Aristotle. There's a lot of quotes. Aristotle believes that happiness is a life lived in virtue. Darren believes that happiness is never a function of simply a good feeling, but rather of living good lives, lives that will almost certainly include a good deal of pain, right? And then Sonia L., I'm not going to pronounce her last name because I butcher it every time, but she's actually a very famous researcher who did a lot of the research on the science of happiness. And she says that the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. Now, of course, I had to throw in a Webster's dictionary definition of happiness. And why don't you guys start throwing your definitions of happiness into the chat? And Cody, why don't you read me one or two after I read the Webster's dictionary definition, if you would, please. Thank you. Webster's definition of happiness, a state of well-being and contentment, joy, right? Joy, 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 joy. So I won't sing anymore. Sorry about that, you guys. So a pleasurable or satisfying experience. I wish you every happiness in life. And I had the happiness of seeing you, used in a sentence. A striking happiness of expression. And then there's an obsolete term that says good fortune, prosperity, all happiness. It's Shakespeare. And these are my two favorite little munchkins. So I was giving you the kind of proper definitions of happiness. And I thought that I would ask two of the happiest people that I know what happiness means to them. This is my niece and nephew. This is Madeline Grace Lane, and this is George Lane, also known as Georgie Pie Lane. He prefers that, actually. And he says that I am happy when I'm Dracula. In fact, every year for his birthday, he wants a Dracula costume. And Madeline Lane loves school, loves interacting. She's very physical. She's a very connected little kid. And she said, happiness to me is being in school. And then she went on to say about how sad she is because she can't see her friends and she's not in school. So what determines our happiness? Hey, Cody, did anybody write a definition of what happiness is?
Of course they did, and I'm glad you asked because I didn't want to interrupt. If I could, in a nutshell, peace, self-love, light, well-being, a sense of purpose, family, and an ease. And happiness is a place where we can all go to escape the BS that life throws at us. Bam. Bam. Mic drop. Back to you.
I love that. So I'm going to have the challenge of not being able to see you, but you guys can see me. And so I might forget. And so I'm very expression speaker. I use my hands a lot. According to research by Sonia, who is a professor of psychology at UC Riverside, 50% of our happiness comes from our genes, 10% comes from life circumstances, and 40% comes from intentional activity. So 40% of our happiness is within our control, which is a huge, huge percentage. In our genes, is happiness in our genes? Research from positive psychology has suggested that as much as 50% is. However, research hasn't zeroed in on what this really means. Is there a single happiness gene? Do happy people share the same genetic makeup? While scientists are still years away from answering these questions, researchers from University of Edinburgh in Scotland recently started to tackle them, finding that the components of happiness are controlled by different genetic influences. They've also researched that different experiences can create different genetic expressions. While we might start with a certain DNA code when we're born, certain experiences like trauma or like really strong connections to people can change the way our genes express themselves and try to take care of us in our life. It's extremely interesting science. Life circumstances. So I only put 4 up here, and I wanted you guys to share a couple other life circumstances that you feel contribute or detract to your happiness. But for us, income level, significant other, friends, family, and for the sake of our discussion a little bit later, work. You spend 40 hours at your workplace, people. If you are miserable there, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, because it's not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it. I have worked in my passion for the last 7 years, and it has been the biggest, most complete gift and the hardest job that I've had. But I believe in it, and I have a lot of passion, and we have great team members. But I've been in jobs that sucked my soul out. And I stayed there because I didn't think I could get another job. I didn't think I was enough. I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't take care of myself. And I didn't teach you how to treat me. I was looking for cues from you as to how I should act at the workplace, instead of saying, solidly standing in my truth and saying, this is who I am. This is what I can do. I've been hired to do this job. I know I can do this job, but I need support. I need connection, right? Cody, did anybody write in the chat?
Yes, we have recent death of a spouse, relationships can contribute, health, puppies, hand down puppies, and children, both adult and young, and viewing life through toddlers' eyes.
Oh, absolutely. I love puppies. I love that there was someone who said puppies because it's actually listed in the science. Learn a new language, cuddle, like get a dog, cuddle an animal, spend time with children. We'll show you. I put a list together at the end. So what kind of intentional activities do you think can contribute to your happiness? Cody, will you please read me the first three?
Singing,
Ooh.
videos of babies laughing, and
Uh-huh.
being physically active.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Very true. What are some, so it might be hard to see the chat, but what are some intentional activities that will detract from your happiness? Cody, will you please read me the first three when you get it?
I would love to. Paying bills, excessive substance use, and lack of sleep, confrontations, negative self-talk.
Absolutely. So negative self-talk is one of the number one. 90% of people who have negative self-talk and let those tapes run are unhappy. They're miserable, and they tend to make everybody around them miserable because they start to believe the negativity and they start to believe the myths that they've built up around what people think of them and how they've been raised. And so when you get into agreement with the myths of your tapes, then you are like a bowling ball of negativity running through people's lives. And so it's really important for us to like take the threads out. What are some of the things that are true? And what are some of the things, what are the things that are absolutely not true? I fact check my mind almost every morning right when I wake up, because for some reason my brain resets itself every day to that core belief system. And I've got to, and this is only me, but I get on my knees and I pray, I meditate, and I work out. And I try to do that. And when I do all of those things before I get out the door, I invariably have a good day, no matter what happens, because I'm taken care of and I feel safe. So for me, in order to be happy, I actually had to be safe because a lot of the trauma that had happened to me, right? So we know that trauma connects to like the polyvagal system, and there's a startle response. I had a startle response for probably I think I just lost it like 3 years ago. And I'm talking like if a door opened, I would jump. And I couldn't control it. And so like really being mindful and really taking control of my body and exercising in my nervous system has highly contributed to my happiness in a positive way.
Another thing, Stephanie, I wanted to share with you before you move on is since Core Health has a room full of folks, they mentioned isolation, and I think that ties into a lot of what is being presented at Peer Pathways, so I wanted to pitch that your direction.
Perfect. Thank you, Core Health. That is awesome. And I don't know if Tricia, you might have already had your presentation, but Core Health, I know them very, very well because I actually just got done working with them. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to work. But more importantly, the people there are really beautiful and they connect with each other and they support each other. So I'm glad that you said that. My point about Core Health is that they connect with people virtually better than anybody I've ever seen. In particular, Star, who is a certified peer counselor there, almost the first or second day that I was there, I watched her like right as we were moving into COVID, she moved right from like in-person groups to like online groups and was getting everybody together and connecting everybody. And it just, and I know Trisha's workshop was about that. So I say that because you can go to this training and learn about happiness, but it's also important for you guys to connect with people who are doing it really well, right? Now, everybody has challenges. Every place has challenges, but virtually these guys are doing, I mean, all across the board, they're doing a great job. Okay to move forward, Cody?
You are good to go.
Okay. Okay, this was fascinating to me because it's called effective forecasting. And effective forecasting just simply means predicting how much a life event is going to impact you. So it's actually, I'm looking forward to going boating this weekend. And so this isn't true, but like I'm looking forward to going boating. And so I'm going to have such a good time, and I'm going to be with, you know, my significant other, and so I'm planning on having such a great time. So we have these expectations, right? And so anybody in recovery might have heard this, but expectations are premeditated resentments, man. It's like if I'm going to predict how much, and we do this is like hardwired into us as humans. We do predict how a negative or a positive event is going to like affect us. But people think that good events are going to make them happy and keep them happy for a very long time, and the bad events are going to crush them for the foreseeable future. Has anybody there ever felt that way? Just give a thumbs up. Yeah, for me, my peerness comes from a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And when I'm feeling really, really good and things are tracking, I think, I don't even think about planning. This is why RAP is so important. Wellness Recovery Action Plans, they're kind of crisis plans that you do when you're well. Because when I'm doing well, I just don't even think about, it's always going to be well. It's always going to be great. But if I'm on the bottom swing of that, and I'm at my house in a fetal position on the couch, which happens because I'm very peer, I think it's always going to stay that way too. For some reason, my monkey mind can't get me out of that trap. And I need peer support, or I need my mom, or I need Lauren or Mo or Dakota or somebody to get me out of that. And so living one day at a time in acceptance can help with effective forecasting, right? It's affective forecasting. Means that if something's good, you think it's going to be good forever, or if something's bad, you think it's going to be bad forever. And that's black and white thinking, and it's just not the truth. But we're kind of hardwired to do that for some reason. Cody, are there any questions before I go on?
10-4, someone thinks I would be a great at, oh gosh, what did she say? A NASA communicator radio guy, so I invite that. No, I'm just, people are chatting away and things are flowing in the chat box, so we are good to go there. More information on RAP, link in the chat box if you're interested in learning more. It's in the chat box.
Perfect, excellent, all right. So now, this is a very, very, very important concept. This is a scientific term, hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation is our ability to adapt to changes in our life circumstances. So this is a little bit Darwin-y, but the people who adapt the quickest are more agile. They have higher emotional IQs. There's a lot of science that's gone into people who are flexible and people who aren't. People who can transition really easily and people who have a really hard time with change, right? And this is a really important concept for me because I do have a mental illness that I thrive with, and I'm not embarrassed about it at all. But it does come with some certain gifts. And one of them is change. This COVID, the change is hard, right? How many people is change kind of difficult for out there? Right? Oh my gosh. So human beings are remarkable at getting used to changes in their lives. New things boost our happiness for a short time, but then we go back to our baseline or the way that we generally are without undue influence. So we're very adaptable. One of the exercises that I do in our trainings is it's a trivia question at lunch saying, why did the dinosaurs become extinct? It's because they didn't adapt, right? Or they couldn't adapt. But then everybody's like, well, it's because of a really big ice thing. You know, then they tell the truth about it, right? But the reality is that lizards and snakes, so dinosaurs became extinct because they couldn't adapt. When a snake sheds its skin, it can grow, right? It has this wonderful growth. But if an And as the snake or lizard is shedding its skin, it's very uncomfortable. And it's like, ah. And that's what people in recovery are doing every day. You're shedding your old skin so you can grow, but it's uncomfortable, right? And so it's really important for people who are in recovery, or for people who work with people who are in recovery, mental health and a substance use disorder, to be able to help people glide into transitions and to be able to adapt to different circumstances. And I'm here to tell you that I've worked with some certified peer counselors, or with some peers who couldn't adapt to positive things that were happening in their life. They couldn't adapt to housing. They couldn't adapt to connection. And so it's not, you know, be really, really careful when you're working with people about how they manage change. In fact, I think that's a really good question to ask people, because I can't tell you how many times I've been working with somebody and then like 3 sessions in, some huge change that they have no control over happens. And then they're almost a different person than when we were working with each other before. So change can trigger people really strongly.
And Stephanie, the question of not only the change coming our direction, but also the choice to change has been brought up in the chat box.
Thank you. Absolutely. You have to choose. We all have to choose to change. And peer support's voluntary in the state of Washington, by the way. So it's all about voice and choice. So I appreciate that you brought that up. I won't go on a soapbox about that. We're going to talk a little bit right now about impact bias. We often underestimate our ability to recover from different experiences. We have a physical immune system and we have a psychological immune system. So, and I don't know if my psychological immune system, if I've been around somebody who's very negative, who has no joy or hope, my psyche gets dampened a little bit. And I can kind of take that on sometimes. And so I have to make sure that I have energy clearing, right? That my mind is clean, and that I watch what I put in my mind and my body for my maximum happiness and joy. And a lot of the things that I used to think made me so happy after 5 years of recovery aren't even on my radar for happiness. I've changed so much. So we often, like I said, underestimate our ability to recover from difficult experiences. We do have a psychological immune system, and so you want to really caretake your energy. Impact bias is a major cause of mistakes in affective forecasting. Now, you remember what affective forecasting is? So people legitimately think that good events are going to make them happy and keep them happy for a long, long time, and that really bad events are going to crush them for the foreseeable future. And here we are moving into the impact bias, saying, hey, this is a major cause of miscommunication, mistakes in your affective forecasting ability. It can lead us to avoid certain decisions or activities out of an inflated fear that they will harm our happiness, or covet certain outcomes, such as winning the lottery, that don't actually boost our happiness as much as we think they will.
And Stephanie, before you move on, can you just quickly address how do you support and navigate as a peer in working with a peer who has a hard time accepting or moving into a positive change?
Well, love that. In fact, I love, who said that?
This is from Meryl S.
Thank you, Meryl. Fantastic. We utilize motivational interviewing and the stages of change. We absolutely have to identify, and Cody, maybe you can put the stages of change in there after this. The people might be in pre-contemplation or contemplation. And so you want to be, before you even work with anybody, I identify what part of the stages of change they are. And then I incorporate motivational interviewing to find out if they want to change. And it's called, there's a gap between, it's ambivalence. And so what you're talking about is what I call ambivalence. And it's the distance between not thinking that I need to change and the change that I need to make, right? So what motivational interviewing does is it closes that gap, right? You just ask open-ended questions. I highly recommend you take a motivational interviewing course if you haven't done it yet, because it makes working with people who are a little bit more resistant, you throw the ball in their court, right? And so, and I don't want to say that, but I haven't really worked with anybody who didn't want to change, really on a deep and fundamental level. I haven't met anybody who came in to a behavioral health agency looking for help, saying, okay, I'm here, I'm all signed up, but no thank you. You know, but I know it happens, especially with youth and emerging youth. So Cody, will you ask that question again? Because I feel like I went off the trail.
Sure, yeah, the question was, how do you have any suggestions on how to navigate as a peer when our peer that we're working with has a hard time accepting or moving to positive change? And also I dropped all the links to motivational interviewing, the stages of change, as well as a link to the OARs, which is kind of like the acronym to remember. So that's in the Dropbox for you, or the chat box.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and so I also do a pro and con list. It's like, what are the pros of the change and what are the cons? Sometimes when people see, and they drive it. It's like, so if you made this change, you don't want to do it, right? But if you did it, what do you think would happen, right? And then if you didn't, what do you think is going to happen? And so usually after they even just do that exercise, they see in their own writing what would happen, say, if they stopped medicating themselves, right? Or if they started working out and started getting healthier, right? It's actually really, really key to put that in writing in front of people, but they write it themselves. And I actually have a couple other tips. And if you actually wanted to connect with me outside of this training, I would be happy to talk to you, because if we're not engaging people, we're not helping them. And I think that the number one thing that certified peer counselors need, they don't get in the CPC training, is how to engage and how to discharge, right? Okay. Anything else, Cody?
Just the question, what if grounds some people? So a lot of thank yous in the chat box.
Oh yeah, what if? Also, if they're trying to make a change that they've already made before, which happens a lot, say somebody's on their second round of treatment for SUD, or for me, you know, I have been known to go off my medication and then have to come back on it. I ask, has this ever happened before? And if it did, what did you do that worked for you, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you can capture what worked for them? It might not work for them again, but at least you have a foundation to like work from. And the most important part of that particular question is that you're going to remember somebody who is in affective forecasting, right? They're thinking it's not going to get good again. All of a sudden they're remembering, oh yeah, that's right, I was here before and it did get good again. What do you got right there? Hope, right? Number one ingredient for recovery. So anything else, Cody, before we go on?
You're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Great questions. Appreciate it. And I'm super caffeinated, so if I start talking really fast, let me know. All right. Don't postpone your happiness. This is, I don't know how many people know this, but I've lost 140 pounds, and I have been self-medicating with food, and had to take medication like Zyprexa and Depakote and gabapentin which, and lithium, the biggies, right? And so I think I gained 50 pounds in the first 3 months that I was on the medication. And I had tried everything. You know what? I finally gave up. Like, I surrendered, and I just said, I'm going to love myself now. I'm going to accept myself now. At 287 pounds, it might never get any different than this. And I have been waiting for 15 years for me to get skinny, to be happy, to live. I didn't know it, but through the work that I've been doing, that's what I found out, right? And like, what's your I'll be happy when, right? Why don't you put that in the chat? I'll be happy when I get a raise. I'll be happy when Lauren walks behind the screen. I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds. I'll be happy when I meet someone. I'll be happy when I'm fully off my medication. I'll be happy when I quit drinking, right? I'll be happy when fill in the blank. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. We are not guaranteed happiness, right? But we can, there is science behind how to be more happy. In fact, the Buddhists, I do a lot of Zen Lojong, and they talk about suffering. They talk about discipline. They talk about the way to happiness is through suffering. Cody, do we have any I will be happy when in the chat?
We sure do. More peace with family, when I have a kid, when I graduate with my MSW, when I find the meaning of life. I'll be happy when my youngest child is an adult, when I finish school, when my daughter forgives me as time goes by, and my memories. I'll be happy when I am comfortable with my job. The meaning of life is 42. Another person I think I skipped over is I am happy now, and I'm happy with myself.
Perfect. I love it. Love it. I love it. I love it. Exactly. So we
30, flirty, and thriving. I love that one too.
I love that too. I wish I could say it. Oh. Okay, here we go. Awesome. So this is my favorite slide, right? What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? So this is going to be a little trigger alert. I just want you to know that I have overcome a lot, and I am proud of myself. And I'm almost going to cry. It's taken me a long, long time to even utter those words. My story is not unique. It's not different than anybody else's, but it is mine. And so when I was 8 years old, I was kidnapped. I was hurt pretty badly. Never told anybody because of what the individual who hurt me said to me. I blew out at 9 years old, committed my first felony when I was 11 years old. I was sent to boarding school when I was 11 and a half. And I was in boarding school till I was 15. Then went to regular school. Still hadn't gotten any help for my mental health. They thought that it was just substance use, but we all soon found out that when I graduated high school and went to college, that I had an episode. And one of the episodes was in college, I wanted to be Miss Auburn. And I was at Green River Community College, and there's a little bit of mania that happens with the bipolar. I'm gonna make sure I have plenty of time. And I just thought, wow, I could sing. And so I sang Delta Dawn, nailed it. I did the interview, and then I did the bathing suit contest. And so I remember that I just told you that I was almost 300 pounds about 4 years ago. So I had a complete psychotic break being in my bathing suit in front of people. And this was at 17. And so when I was on the stage, I would walk out to the stage, and you're supposed to like turn around and then walk back, and you're only supposed to turn once. I just kept turning, and it was like a glass mirror shattered in front of me. And I lost it. And I can say that because that's how I felt. And I was mean. I was mean to the person that won. And my mom looked at me and she said, "You are not mean." She's like, "This is the only time in your whole life that I've ever been embarrassed." And she made me go, and I'm not going to tell you. Well, I will. So I said she had cankles because I was jealous that she won. And I was losing my mind at the same time because I don't think I had slept for like 3 days. So moving forward, that actually spiraled me down into about 4 years of homelessness and doing everything that you do on the street to survive homelessness, and getting my throat cut, getting into fights, eating out of garbage cans. I am a survivor. I am resilient, just like you, just like you. My story is not unique. And I know that you guys are resilient, and I know that you guys are survivors. And so when I got into recovery, I asked myself, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? And the answer was go to school. And it took me 7 years to get a 4-year degree. It took me, most of those first 3 years were trying to do math, right? Now I have a master's degree. I'm a mental health professional. I help people who have what I have and other things. I get help from people. There's mutuality in my world, and I am resilient. I call myself a weevil that wobbles but doesn't fall down. And you have to be over 40 to understand what that is. But I want you guys to tell me, well, because, and then now I guess the end of the story is I'm the executive director of a peer-run agency in Washington State in a university, which is very rare. And I don't know how I got here. All I know is that I didn't quit. I didn't stop. And I didn't let what other people thought of me or said behind my back stop me from reaching my goals and being a servant leader. Because my job now is to be of service to you and to anybody else that has walked through what I've walked through. So don't underestimate your resilience. Don't put things off because of fear of failure. You are so much more resilient than you realize. And resilient people are happier. Cody, did anybody put in the chat what they would do if they knew they wouldn't fail?
I think I forgot to ask people, so no. Sorry. People are just, we're having a lot of applause and just thanking you for sharing your story and your approach, and you're very eloquent in your sharing, so.
Oh, thank you. All right. So this is the big misunderstanding in our nation. So it's a very, very, very American thing. Not just isolated here because we like to spread the love, but we judge ourselves and other people on how much money we have in our bank account. It's gross. I mean, it's disgusting. I would rather be judged on how much I have in my spiritual bank account. I would rather be judged on how much service I've been able to do, because I was a taker. You don't grow up like that and not start taking stuff and not care about it. My job now is to give back, right? So spend money on experiences more than material possessions. So speaking of money and happiness, research by Ed Diener, money indeed increases the level of happiness when it helps to lift people out of poverty. I was on Social Security disability for 6 years. Nobody ever thought that I would ever be able to freaking tie my shoe, let alone have a job, let alone be an executive director of an agency, right? A lot of people lost money on me. Let me tell you that. So check this out. Earning up to $75,000 in the US does make people happier. But when that level is reached and actually gone further, our happiness seems to be unaffected. Once our basic needs are met and we can pay our bills and we have the necessities to be comfortable, more money doesn't make you more happy. In fact, it's kind of the opposite, particularly if you're a lottery winner. I want to discuss something called the poverty mentality, which I had, and I think I still have it a little bit. But when I was on Social Security, so there was a while when I didn't talk to my family at all, like 18, 19, and 20. And right around at 20, I went into the Josephinium on 9th and Stewart, downtown Seattle. It's kind of it's a roach-infested single unit recovery place to live, and I loved it. And I was absolutely ecstatic when I got it. And if I looked really far, like out the window to the side, I could see the Space Needle, so I had a view. But it was the first housing I had after being homeless for a long time. And I made $546 a month. And I had food stamps and food assistance. And I have to say that it was really difficult, but it was amazing. We all pulled together. Like I was happy, you know, like I felt like I've had hope, right? I might've only had $546 a month, but I had hope. And you know what my biggest dream in the world was at that point in my life, which was the 90s? If I could just make $1,000 a month, I would be set for life, right? Because I had no idea I have a poverty mentality. I had no idea that, first of all, I'm worth more than that. I'm enough. I'm worth making money. You know, like it's that self-esteem and that internalized oppression. I was just oozing with it. And so I wanted to challenge, I wanted to bring that up because I think it's a super important point. But I also think that we need to examine our own poverty mentality. Are you hoarding things? Are you working really, really hard to like make sure you have enough? Like, is there any unnecessary emotion or toxicity attached to your view of money? And if there is, try to work on it, because once I got that poverty mentality, because no matter what I made, like I was giving away money, I was like, it's kind of no understanding at all of the concept of money. But once I got rid of my poverty mentality, everything started clicking, everything started coming together. And not just for me, but I wasn't leaking, because money's power. And if you have a challenge with power, you are likely to have a challenge with money. So here's some benefits of happiness. According to research by Sonia L., people who are happy actually make more money and are more productive at work. They're smarter and more creative. They're healthier. They have more friends. They are more generous. They cope better with stress and trauma, and they're more resilient, and they have better immune systems. Well, so what creates happiness, right? Well, good sleep. I put these in my order, but these are exactly the concepts. Good sleep habits, regular exercise, social connections, romantic relationships, compassion, forgiveness, and mindfulness. We're going to go a little bit deeper into forgiveness. So I just want you guys to know that forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. The other person probably has no idea that you have a resentment, nor do they probably care, right? So love equals oxytocin, which equals healing. We're here to talk about touch. When people hold hands, they produce oxytocin in the brain after 20 seconds. Recent studies show that many physical and emotional benefits come from touch. Healthy touch can counteract high ACE scores, which is adverse childhood experiences. Oxytocin is nature's pain reliever. Even more incredible is that oxytocin potentially not only works directly on the brain's pain processing areas, but also indirectly decreases suffering by relieving depression and anxiety as it's related to pain. So more oxytocin, more happiness. So I love this. This is the happiness benefits of kindness and giving. You're going to be, if you are kind and giving and generous, and you can put your ego aside, you're going to be less lonely and you're going to have better overall health. Volunteer. When you give of yourself, it's going to enhance your well-being and your life expectancy. All scientific. All these are scientifically proven. Promotes cooperation and social connection, evokes gratitude, and gratitude is contagious. So also giving has a bigger happiness factor than spending on oneself. I'm going to say that again. You will be happier buying something for somebody else or giving than buying something for yourself. What? That's so un-American. All right, so also paying it forward is really paying yourself in happiness potential. So is there a price to pay when we're not happy and content? Well, you bet. See, like holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Some people who are in 12-step programs might recognize this saying a little bit as like having a resentment is like drinking poison yourself and expecting the other person to die. Either way, it's not a good scene, right? So hurts and conflicts we suffer in life take a considerable toll on our psychological and physical well-being, which is why gossip in the workplace is really unhealthy. It is so unhealthy because people know in the workplace when they're being gossiped about. People know when they're not fitting in at the workplace. And what a horrible place to not fit in. What a horrible place to not feel valued and supported. Your family, you depend on this, right? Super important. Not only that, you're likely spending 40 hours of your life a week there, right? Make sure at least some of those hours are happy and that you're appreciated and that you feel comfortable. A really good job should be like a fish swimming in water, right? The fish doesn't even know it's in water, right? It's just there. We shouldn't have to like suffer through, how do I say this? Supervision that's not helpful, being put in roles that we don't relate to or that we're not hired for. All these different things we're going to talk about in a couple of slides. So grudges and a desire for revenge is one of the biggest happiness stealers. And we do it to ourselves. You get a resentment, you get all mad, and then you're going to be like, I'm not going to invite them to my party, right? So the work equivalent of I'm not going to invite them to a party, that's a 2-year-old tantrum, right? We know what happens when we move from the prefrontal cortex back to the lizard brain. That's when the 2-year-old comes out. And so the interesting thing about at work, I'm not inviting them to my party is I accidentally forgot to CC you. Oh, well, we're all going out to dinner tonight, but I know you have that, you know, being bullied, being excluded, being looked over, not being appreciated, not feeling respected. If any of these things are happening to you, I'm here to tell you that number one, you are letting it happen. This is your responsibility, and you teach people how to treat you. You are beautiful. You are amazing. You are enough. You are effective. You are an awesome worker. You do not need to be in a place where you are not appreciated. It's not healthy, right? So conflict at work and or with a supervisor is a happiness stealer. And general mistakes of other people, such as like what happens, or general mistrust of people. So if you haven't handled your trauma and you're working in a place that triggers you, you want to get help for this as soon as possible. It's nothing worse than a wounded healer who spreads their oozing toxicity over everybody that they're helping, right? And let me tell you this, if you're helping somebody because you're uncomfortable, then it's not help. It's a selfish act. And so we'll just do this. General mistrust of people is a happiness stealer. I'll go into a story at the end. Mindfulness is, I'm checking the time. Mindfulness is the key. It's the key to be fully present, because check this study out. Matt Killingsworth had an N of 15,000 people. I'm going to have to get you the link to the university that he was connected with. 47% of the time, we are thinking about something else other than what we're doing. What are you guys thinking about right now? Are you here? 40% of the time, we're thinking about something else other than what we're doing. Sorry if that clapping actually scared anybody that can't see the screen. People are substantially less happy when their minds are wandering as compared to when they're present. So what's happening when your mind is not wandering is called mindfulness. It means you're present, and your presence is a gift. So there's a strong relationship between mind wandering now and being happy and being unhappy a short time later. So there's a super strong correlation to be like spacing out and then come back. And then like within 2 hours later, you have this feeling of kind of like depression and not really being there. So mindfulness is really important for the health and hygiene of our minds. So here's some happiness solutions. Do acts of random kindness. Volunteer and help others. Keep a gratitude journal. Forgive quickly. It's for you, not them. Practice mindfulness, self-compassion. Be curious, not critical. If your go-to, and I hate to say this, but a lot of people in recovery that I know in recovery from substance use disorder, of which I have many friends, they're kind of critical. They're kind of like judgy pants sometimes. And so we have to really, and so was I, and am I at times, because I'm human and I'm never going to be above human. And we're meant to like put things in order and fill in the blanks. But you want to be curious and not critical. So like, why would my boss want me to come? So my boss, I passed my boss in the hallway. Stephanie, come to my office. So I have a choice right there in that moment. I can be like, oh my God, what did I do? Or I can be like, I'm curious, this is what she wants, right? Totally different next 2 hours, depending on how I think about that one request that just happened like that, right? So don't help people because you feel uncomfortable. Help yourself because you're the one feeling that way. So I think I have, oh man. Are we done at 10:45?
11.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story. There was this young boy who's about 7 years old, and he loved butterflies, absolutely loves butterflies. He walks to school. He has to go about a half a mile every day. As he was walking to school on Monday, he saw this cocoon that was kind of moving. It was like, he's like, oh, there's a butterfly. So he went home after school, told his mom and dad. They said, okay, just watch it. And he's like, just sat there and watched it, and then went to school on Tuesday. This Wednesday, he came and he watched it, and there was a little tiny wing sticking out. And he had a little like Swiss Army knife, and he just very gently, didn't touch the butterfly at all, didn't hurt it, just kind of opened the cocoon a little tiny bit, went home, came the next day, was either thought that the butterfly was gonna land on his shoulder and thank him or be gone. But what he found was a moth with a distended belly and two very T-Rex wings on the ground of the forest going around in circles. And what happened was what happens with a butterfly is that they have to struggle. You cannot take the struggle from that butterfly because it pushes all of the liquid out of the tummy, and that's what makes the monarch's wings so beautiful. So what happened with this boy, in his misguided desire to help because he felt uncomfortable about the struggle of the butterfly, actually killed it and shortened its life. And so when we work with peers, and we want to make sure that our bias is checked, that like, why am I doing what I'm doing? You want to make sure that you understand, and that you don't help because you're uncomfortable, because that becomes something called codependency eventually. And that's a whole nother training. All right, here's 4 keys to workplace happiness. Purpose. Our purpose is a reflection of our core values, and we feel more purposeful at work, right? Engagement. Engagement. Do you generally enjoy your work? Are you part of the decisions about what, when, and how you do things? Resilience. Resilience is the ability to handle, adapt to, and productively learn from setbacks and failures. You also want to have confidence in the team, and you want to be respected. And again, most of you guys who are certified peer counselors will absolutely understand this. Supervision is not therapy, right? So what irks your work? Really important to know if you're going to have all of this acceptance and all of this mindfulness, what do you need to be mindful about? You got to have a game plan, right? Because we're not naturally this way. This is an effort to expand our grace in this world, right? And grace for ourselves. So what irks your work? I want you guys to put it in the chat. What in your mind is like, oh, this is so frustrating. And do not use names, and do not talk about your supervisor. People not getting back to you, supervisors who aren't interested or do not know your work, being told to work outside your scope with no acknowledgement that that's what's happening. It's one thing to work out the scope of your work when you're in a bind, but if your boss is trying to like make that a regular deal, that's not cool. And you get to say it. You get to say it, just because that's why money is not that important. Your happiness is important. And I know that this might sound like pie in the sky to the very linear people or Capricorns in the audience, but just kidding. So money doesn't create happiness. It doesn't. So this is what irks your work. People not getting back to you, supervisors who are not interested, being told to work outside your scope. So take a minute, share with a neighbor in a private chat your personal work irk. And actually, I already asked you to do that in the regular chat, so that's fine. You don't need to do that. So acceptance. Eckhart Tolle says that the space between what is now and what you wish now to be, right? That's that ambivalence. That's that space of unhappiness. Lack of acceptance of what is right now is a huge part of ambivalence, and we've got to close that gap. So Eckhart Tolle says that the space between what is now and what you wish now to be is the space of contention, drama, and stress. It is the source of stress. Acceptance does not mean, now this is me saying this, acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It absolutely, I have to be in acceptance every day because I fight, right? I am a fighter. Like I will come at things full speed ahead. And I used to think that being in acceptance meant that I'm giving up, but not at all. Acceptance makes me more effective as an advocate. Acceptance makes me more effective as a leader. And you know what else? It kind of quieted me down so that other voices could be heard too, right? Because if I'm in advocacy mode, right, then I'm like, I have a capital T. I have a truth that I want to convince you of, right? But if I'm in leadership mode, just pretend I'm in a group of 4 people and there's no big T, there's 4 little T's, right? This is leadership. And we take the 4 little T's, which are the little truths, and we put them all in the middle, and we create a new mutual truth, right? And that's leadership. Advocacy is, this is the truth, and this is what's needed about the truth. So acceptance does not mean agreement. Acceptance is a spiritual practice and a practice all at once. So here's some workplace happiness solutions. Know the policies and procedures. Ask questions when you don't know. Don't make up stories without all the facts. And then don't pass those stories with half the facts on to other people. Do not assume that you are in trouble when you get called into the boss's office. It might be good news, right? Please do not gossip about your coworkers. Never gossip about your boss. You have no idea how painful and career stopping it can be. When what you said gets back to the person, you could be looked at as a bully. Help your coworkers. Apply general happiness solutions on the former slide in the workplace, like random acts of kindness, self-care, and mindfulness. Okay, cool. There's a couple others. I'm just going to see. Okay, there we go. There we go. So connection gives us meaning and purpose in life. Brene Brown. Okay, so send someone you don't know a private message telling them how you connect in a healthy way with other people. And then while you're doing that, my contact information is on the slide. And Cody could definitely, or I could put it in the chat. And then I'm going to get out of slide presenter mode and see your beautiful faces and answer some questions. There we go. Hi, how's it going? Yay, look at you. Hi, Star. Star, are you unmuting? Are you going to say something? Okay.
There we go.
You're awesome.
Oh,
I really like that presentation.
oh, thank you. Thank you. I've wanted to do it for a long time. I appreciate it. I appreciate that so much.
And
So,
Stephanie,
yeah.
oh, just before I forget, there were a few folks that asked about the slide deck. They would love to have a copy of your presentation for future reference.
For $5.
I got five.
I got five
On it.
Hey,
I'm on it. All right, Star.
we could take our $5 $1 and put them together like the little T's into the big T, the 5 singular dollars to one big dollar.
There we go.
Oh, that's funny. So let me, I will try. I think I can connect it or load it right here. But while I'm doing that, if you don't mind me just looking around a little bit, why don't do you guys have any questions?
No questions? I'm good.
I think you covered it
Okay, great.
for us.
I have a comment though.
Oh, I'd love a comment.
Stephanie, you always inspire me. Yeah, you always inspire me. You always have. And I just, it made me feel a lot better about where I'm working. So that just hit the nail on the head with it. So just wanted to let you know that.
So glad. Thank you. You know, I've had so much trouble at work in the past, but it was like 90% right here with my own trauma brain, right? They don't like me. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing a good enough job, right? And then keeping it secret because I don't want to look needy and I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing, right? When I really could just go, I need some affirmation about the work that I'm doing. If you feel that, you know, I deserve it. And if not, can you tell me how I can improve? Super
I think they need to
easy.
include that in like supervisor training.
Yeah.
How to affirm your employees.
We talk about that. In fact, one of the biggest things in raw dialogue and the operationalizing peer support is do not ever just like snap at somebody and say, meet me in my office in 5 minutes. Because you've just created 5 minutes of terror for the person that you've asked into your office. No explanation, quick communication, not trauma informed. Yeah.
Stephanie, there's a comment in the chat about how would you approach handling a workplace that has some negativity and you show up and continue to try and be the light, but the negativity continues to spill out and exist?
In your new job.
That's a great question. And so I would decide first is that, am I well? I do a check, right? Fact check, Steph Brain fact check. Am I well? Am I good? Is this reasonable? I probably run it by Dakota. Seriously, like I run it by somebody I trust. And so, and then, ask me the question again. Sorry, I have conference brain.
Yeah, totally. So if you are bringing the light and positivity to a negative workplace, but it still spills over.
Yeah, leave. No, I'm serious, because we have this Captain Sava, whatever, fill in the blank, right? We put these capes on, we're like, I know that the last 3 peers blew out of this, but I'm the one that's not going to do it. Oh man, you need to find out why the last 3 peers blew out. You don't set yourself up for that, right? Right? That's a great question. Any other questions?
You can either write your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask Stephanie directly.
Dylan, do you want to ask a question? No? Okay.
Did I raise my hand on accident? Is that?
No.
I think it just shows unmuted, but I think Meryl was waving. Meryl, did you have a question for Stephanie?
Yeah. First of all, super thank you. This is awesome seminar you gave. I'm so inspired. So many tools. I'm gonna pass it on to peers I work with. And I had one question about the poverty mentality that you talked about. Do you have any do you know if any courses they give, or how did you work on that? How did you work on that yourself to make that change?
So I didn't even know there was such a thing as poverty mentality until about 3 years ago, when I started listening to Louise Hay. So I'm pretty old school with affirmations. I listened to Louise Hay, and she has this book. Well, and plus, I wanted to cure myself of bipolar, right? So I have read every book that on healing yourself, positivity. Like, there was so many years when I just really did not want to have a mental health challenge, that I was trying everything and learning everything. Poverty mentality, if you look up Louise Hay, the book is called Heal Your Life. And this is what she's going to say. There is enough money and food in the world to feed and clothe and protect everybody 3 times over, the population 3 times over in the world. And we could distribute all of that money over a period of, like, say 2 years. Everybody just gets all the money distributed. And in 10 years, because of the way we think about money, whether we think we deserve it or don't deserve it, we're going to have exactly the amount of money and power that we think we deserve. So in 10 years, it's going to disseminate again, just like it is now. Just like lottery winners, Dakota just said.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Go ahead, Joshua. Hi, Josh.
All right. In this awesome training, thank you. Obviously, wonderful, wonderful. I was so glad to see you. I stumbled across the term affective forecasting.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to learn a little bit about that. I recently had a little court date, and before going in, I just knew that it was going to be terrible, and it was awesome. But still, I had that feeling afterwards, like it didn't go so well, and I kept having to replay to myself, like, this is awesome. Everything went wonderful. So I'm really glad we touched base on that, so I can dive into it a little more. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. That's the key right there. You just honed right in on the Holy Grail right there. Because if I think it's good or if I think it's bad, I'm right. And it's going to be that way.
If I think it's bad, I'm right. Okay.
Right. Thanks, Josh. That was great.
It reminds me of intention and manifestation.
Yes.
Yes.
And kind of like what Swill was talking about this morning, is what was, what is, and those 2 points of reference will influence what will be.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh. I like that one. Yeah.
Your hostess with the mostest. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So I get a question. Peer leadership training for what do you call it?
For
Peer supervision. How do you go about getting someone that?
Me.
You?
So tell me more about what you're interested in. You need OPS?
We need- Huh?
You need operationalizing peer support?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Maybe we'll have a conversation
I'll
after
email
class.
you.
We'll email you.
I'll email you.
You got core, you can have whatever you want. Like
Awesome.
Yeah.
if I have the time, I'm there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Seriously, just call me later. I
We
love
really
you.
appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you guys. All right, anybody? I don't just say that to anybody. That's just an amazing group of people right there. So, anybody else have any questions, thoughts? How do you like, happiness has to be nurtured. It's like a relationship, you know, like think of yourself as having a relationship with
I'm gonna take a picture.
happiness. And have you attended to that relationship? What are you doing to attend to that relationship? Right? You have to put money in the bank to be able to take money out of the bank. Think of happiness like a bank, right? Working out, taking your vitamins, touching that oxytocin. There's so many ways that we can create the feeling. We have a lot more, those intentional activities, right? We have 40% of our happiness is determined by intentional activities. What's your intent, right? All right, you guys, I think
Awesome.
that's it.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Let's all give Stephanie a round of applause. Yay. And so please do us a favor and share your thoughts and comments with us. The link for the workshop evaluation is included. Also, a great technique, if you want to capture the resources that were dropped in the chat box, you can take your mouse and hover over the 3 dots on the bottom right-hand corner of your chat box, and you can save that chat. So as Stephanie was mentioning different links and different people, I did my best to capture that and drop those links to websites in the chat box. So a lot of great resources were shared. Feel free to capture that before you leave. And Stephanie, one last question as far as the slide deck. How can we get that to folks?
Yeah, so I don't know how to attach it because it's in a cloud. So I just put my email in the chat, and then just if you want the PowerPoint, there's a few rules. Just make sure that you don't distribute it widely, and just if you are welcome to use anything in there, because all that information, someone told me that information. I'm happy to tell you that information. You can use it in any way, just like all of PWA's materials. You can use it any way you want. But just give us credit.
Awesome. So I dropped that in again. It's Stephanie.Lane at wsu.edu, and also her telephone number is there for you. So with that, we're at 11:01. Thank you all for your time and attention. And Stephanie, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Love you.
Nice to meet all you. Bye.
And I'll stick around if there's any questions or concerns that weren't addressed for the next couple of minutes. So feel free to leave as you'd like, and I'll be around for any Q&A.
Angel Cat.
Thank you so
Bye,
much, guys.
everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Joshua.
Thank you, Stephanie. Bye, Cody.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye, Dylan.